Go and be. There's nothing I'm going to say that's going to top that. So, I mean, there's nothing. Full disclosure, I listen to classical music. Don't ask me. I don't know. I just know what I like to listen to, and I do it when I read. I do it when I go to sleep. When I do anytime I need to calm my soul a little bit. And you connect me to the divine in this place with your playing. So thank you for sharing your gift with us. We are lucky and blessed to have you. Which it fits because we're talking stewardship, and we're going to talk about gifts and how we use our gifts and how we use those to connect with others. Connect is our theme for stewardship, and this week we're talking about connecting with others. Your music connects us. It connects us with the divine. Ben's talent and gifts that he has to be able to do that. We know what happens when Ben isn't here. It doesn't go well. I told Ben, it doesn't go well. But that's hard. But he has a love and a talent for this, and it helps to connect people who are not here to us and to the divine. You know, Al uses his music to play at a place where people are dealing with dementia, but to see him sing and to remember that, and that's an emotional moment. And thank you for inviting me to that, and I could share in that. That's using your gift and talent for the betterment of people, the way you guys sing. Gene, the way you set up this place to make it beautiful on Sundays helps connect us to this place. There's so many ways. Bob, coming down with the kids, you're great at this. So many of you are great at this. Just multiple ways in which we can use our gifts. Jane, you have a gift for visiting and caring for people, right? You have a gift for that. These are gifts and talents that we use to connect. And so I want us to think about this month. Because I know stewardship is not the most fun thing to talk about. I hate talking money in church. I do. Full disclosure, I hate it. If you saw my video I posted, I don't like it. You don't like it. Nobody wants to sit here and talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. I've been there. I sat there and thought, man, the church always wants to talk about money. And I get. But ever since being in the pews before I got into ministry, I've always wanted to make it more of a positive experience. Because the reality is, we have to have money to operate. Now, I have literally worked in a church, no joke, where I had people tell me I should not receive money because Paul didn't. Listen, I've tried to go to the grocery store and pay for my groceries with my good looks and charm. However, they do not accept that. So I like to eat. I do need a paycheck. I'm sure electric company would love to give us free electrical because we do good deeds. In fact, they actually would not. They do require money. So there is this part of it's just a necessity that we have to have. But stewardship has to be more than just that. How we give, why we give. I think there's a lot of things about our faith when we give time away, when we give our talent away, when we give our finances away, it betters the place around us. It helps those around us. And I also think for us, it can provide some humility. It can humble us down. It doesn't make it all about us. It releases us from maybe some selfish things. I know that's one of the reasons that helps me when I give. Because if I don't, I just have more money to buy stuff for myself. I like that. But that's not always the most Christian response to some of the things that I have. The Christian response is, how can I also help those that may be struggling, help those that God may be calling me to help? And so, I want to, as I begin this, I want to give a big thanks to the stewardship team as well. They've made this pretty enjoyable. So, Diane Critchett, you've really busted your butt and worked really hard at this, and I really appreciate the time you put in, especially in the midst of traveling and being gone. And Judy, the love and desire that you have, and the excitement you have, and Scott Yoder Hawks, who brings his knowledge and gifts of finance to this team, and just the aspirations and goals and dreams they have. It gets me excited because we're not just talking about paying the bill. We're talking about bigger stuff. Because one of the things that I like that you all do is something called aspirational budgeting. I've talked about this a little bit, but you have kind of your ledger of here's what we got to pay and do. But then there's this dream section of what do we want to do as a church? This big, bold, where do we want to go? And we've gotten a lot of feedback, and we want more feedback. We want your feedback. There's a stewardship table out here that you can grab a form and you can fill out. What are your dreams? Like, we want to hear about that. You can bring it back, drop it in the box. You can email us what your dreams are. You can mail it back. You can text me. You can do what, communicate however you want. I just don't do telepathy yet, so I can't read your mind, but communicate with us. The stewardship team wants to hear. So when we roll out the budget this year, it's going to have all our aspirations on it. It's pretty sizable. 100 grand maybe? I think that's exciting. We don't know if we can do it all. We probably can't. Maybe we can't. Maybe we can. We don't know. That's exciting though, because we're not just paying bills here. We're thinking big. How do we connect with people? How do we share God with others? What are outreach things that we can do? How can we set up our church to welcome more people and be more inclusive? Like, we're thinking big, and too many churches nowadays have just thought small. They work from what I would say is the scarcity mindset. Oh, we got just a little bit in the bank. We got to hold on. Man, I know this one church, no joke, 1.2 in the bank, $1.2 million in the bank. Budget's around 500. So they got 2.5 years in the bank. You would think they're broke. You would think they're broke. Oh, we got, the AC could go out. That's going to be 150 grand. That's cool. We still got a little over $1 million. We're good. But they're so scared to invest in the future because we just have to prepare for this. Well, that's not, I don't know if that's a lack of faith. I don't know what that is. But it just holds them in place. They struggle moving forward. We worship a big God, a God who can do big things. We should move with abundance. And I kind of figured, hey, if I'm ever in a church that doesn't have a whole lot to its name and we're like, look, we're going to close it down, I'm going to go down swinging. I want to go down investing and doing and all that. There's actually a story. I wish I knew what church it was, but I read this article talking about this church that looked at their finances and said, we have 1 year left. And then we're going to close. And they were like, we could hang on for a year, just pay the pastor and just close it up. They decided, you know what? We're just going to throw everything we can into outreach. We're going to see what happens. The church survived, and it grew. It's like if you live into the calling as a church, God may multiply that blessing. He doesn't want us to be scared and fearful. God wants us to think big and trust and have faith, but do the work of love and gospel in the world. And I do want to challenge us to dream big. And your gifts come in so many different forms and sizes. I want you to take inventory of those. And our gifts can change as time goes on. But as we think about our church now and in the future, think about the ways in which you can do and things that you can do to help to connect to people. In 2018, Cigna did a study on loneliness. 2018, pre-COVID. They found out that loneliness is at an all-time high. In 2018, 6 years ago. Every study since COVID, that number hasn't gotten better. Right? 1 in 3 adults in the U.S. feel lonely. 1 in 4 have a lack of social and emotional support. Now, Jane, I know you look at this a lot. Carol, you look at this a lot too. We've seen this, haven't we? We've heard stories. We've seen the data. This is happening. I mean, just look around this room right now. You all may be experiencing that yourself. Right? There's others in this world that are experiencing this. And I think the church has been kind of slow to respond. I think a lot of places have been kind of slow to respond. I think COVID exposed some holes and sped up things that were already present in our society. We've missed those connections, those 3D connections. Technology is great, and it can help us bring us together in moments where we can't be present, but it's not the solution for everything. Like, I've gone to 2 ministry events last month, and it's great to connect with ministers that I see all the time on Zoom, but I haven't seen in 3D. It's beautiful just to finally, hear their voice. And it's like, oh, you're taller than I thought you were, Like, oh, this is not, And so it just brings me joy. And I'm introverted, and I know it doesn't seem that way. I have to put on a show here sometimes and be more extrovert, but it wears me down. If you're introverted, you know this. It just kind of exhausts you a little bit. But I also know that, boy, I have to consciously make a decision to go visit, see people, and it does energize me, but it also kind of drains me at the same time. But it would be very easy for me just to stay home, like I kind of did the last couple days, and just kind of like not do a whole lot. But it's great to come here on Sunday and see people. We still, no matter how introverted we are, we still need connections. We are a social people. And there's some groups from this Cigna study that are really struggling the most. The groups most affected: low-income adults, young adults, older adults, which I love that. Young adults and older adults. Is that all? I think that's all the adults. I think we got them all. But really, they kind of broke it down more. It's like, low 20s to low 30s. Men especially are kind of outliers in this. A lot of men have kind of ventured into video games. I have nothing against video games. But that's kind of where they get their social interaction. And men are really dealing with a major health crisis of loneliness right now. But being a man, well, we ain't going to admit that. No, man, I ain't going to admit that. Shoot. Nobody's going to say that. But there are signs. And I think it's important for us to know there are signs, right? Adults living alone. And then we have these two marginalized communities, immigrants and people who identify as LGBTQ. And as an open and affirming church, we should be sensitive to marginalized groups that are especially vulnerable to that. People with disabilities. If we're going to be open and affirming church, how do we make sure that we can stay connected with people who otherwise in the world may struggle forming those connections? And we see some health issues. So these are some of the signs that we see: heart disease and stroke, type 2 diabetes, depression and anxiety, suicidal ideation and self-harm, dementia, earlier death. None of those are pleasant. None of those are good. And those are rising in people, especially young people. They're seeing a rise in strokes and heart attacks in young people. And the lack of connection is a factor to this. It's not the solution. It's a factor. So here's what I would say. If you're somebody on the health issue side dealing with any of those, and I've already told you all, full disclosure, right? Which one do I deal with? Depression, anxiety. Now, my depression's low level, but I deal with a lot more. I deal with a social anxiety. Y'all make me nervous, right? I deal with a social anxiety. So it can prevent me from going out and making those connections. Okay, so since I know that, now I have to learn and get help to be able to build healthy connections. Where do I do that? This is where I think the church can step up. I find comfort in the church. I know a lot of young people, 12 years of working with young people, a lot of them deal with depression, anxiety. They feel love and comfort in a church when it really reflects that love that Jesus kind of tells us to be. The church can be part of this solution to build these connections. So we can look at this. We know people, even ourselves, if we're dealing with some of this, how are our connections doing? How are your connections? Take inventory of that. We just, as a church, as a big C church, I think we've been a little slow to respond with opportunities for connections. Because churches are dealing with a lot of stuff, a lot of strain. They're dealing with, not as many people, or budgets are tighter. And so they're not thinking about how to build connections. What churches worry about is butts and seats. That wasn't long ago I was interviewing. Every church I spoke to wanted to know how to get more people in worship. That's not the right question to ask. The right question to ask, how do we connect with people? I don't care about this. I know I should. You probably don't like that as a minister. I should probably care, but I don't. I don't worry about this. This is a byproduct of authentic and healthy connections. If you trust and love the people you're around, you want to show up and be present. But people don't want to focus on connections. They don't want to do that work. They just want to figure out, how do we get them into worship? So I take a whole different spin on it. I was talking with Callie Harriman this past week. For those that know Callie, she's going to be taking over and kind of leading up our young adult family adult, we have no idea what we don't know what we're going to call it, do we, Spless? We have no idea. We have no clue. You got a cool name for that age group from Autumn's age to older people? We don't know, whatever. People group. And she's excited about it, and she's excited about some of the ideas and things, and I'm excited about that because that's going to be great. And I told her, I said, Callie, one thing I will not push you to do, you will not hear it come from my mouth, I will not push you to do any kind of Bible study or devotion. I don't care about that. And I know that sounds weird coming from a minister. Why would you not care about that? Because that can come later. Just build connections with each other. I would rather see people gathering up, getting to know each other, getting to trust each other, to reach out to each other with a phone call or text. Hey, man, I got this going on in my life. Will you pray for me? Hey, I got this. Will you help me walk through this? We do this together, don't we, Kathy? Help me walk through this. It's great having that connection, a trusted voice. Hey, this great thing happened. Let me celebrate with you. Hey, my kids are doing this. Why don't you come over, get our kids together? What about going out to dinner? Enjoy all that. When I did a young adult ministry in a church I worked at, we did the same thing. Don't do anything for a year, faith-wise. Just gather up. And they did. They did a Sunday. They gathered up. They ate soup and food together and played games, cards. All right? After a year, they're like, you know what? We should probably do like a devotion of some kind. So they did. They made the choice. They made the decision. When the space became appropriate and the time became right and they had the trust and the desire, they did it. They did it. When people have the trust, which we have to rebuild in our churches, they'll come to worship. They'll come and gather up. I just want people to gather, to get connected, to hang out, to enjoy each other again. I want people to belong before they believe. And this is a different idea. I got crushed on this idea in seminary. Crushed by my theological professor. But when I see Jesus, I see someone that invites people to the table first. Come and join in life, see what's going on, see what we're doing here. And then people believe. But they're invited into the community first. I want people to belong and feel that they belong a part of this community, and then we can work on the belief. And that really will just be kind of up to their own heart and their own journey, their own connection in God. We'll have those opportunities for studies and learning and worship that people can do. But nobody's sitting in these pews, nobody's coming to our stuff if they don't like us, if they don't trust us, if they don't feel a sense of love from us. And today's passage is talking about hospitality, and hospitality is a major theme throughout the biblical times. It's important to individuals and the society. It's important to be hospitable to each other and strangers that come in to their towns, into their lands, into their churches, into their homes. The extra push from this scripture is this: be hospitable without complaining. Oh, we never complain in church. We make a change. Everybody gets along. It's never a problem. I have a friend right now who's doing ministry. She started at this mega church, and I give her a hard time because she's not a mega church person at all. But I'm like, man, you're living the mega church life. She's like, we got new carpet, and I hate it. I'm like, oh my God, you're the old church woman. Like, no offense. We all have our thing, don't we? We all have our thing. Oh, she did. But I have had people. I had another friend who's a minister in North Carolina. They changed the carpet in the church, 40-year-old carpet, put new carpet in. A person left the church over the carpet color. Come on, people. Come on. Without complaining. Like, is it that big of a deal? It's not. We like what we like. I get it. But sometimes to be hospitable, sometimes to create better space for people to be welcomed into the space, to have space in the proper setup for kids to feel welcome, and so parents don't feel like my kid's a distraction in service. How do we do that? We got a study back on our building. Did you know our pews are too close together? It makes it too hard to get in and out? It's too close together. You don't know that until you get those studies done. Then you're like, oh, okay. Well, that could be a problem for people who have some mobility issues. Oh, what do we do about that? Hi, property, we're going to have some conversations. But can we do that without complaining? Can we have productive conversations about how do we use our space to connect with people? That's the challenge. And I think we need an approach to both and, not either or. We can do both this and that. It doesn't always have to be this or that. Both and. I think music is one that always kind of comes up. How do we enjoy some of the classics and the hymns while also learning new music and praise music and being challenged with new music? Some churches want nothing to do with that. But then you miss this whole other generation of people that are moved by modern day music. Can you release some of your own comfort to allow somebody else to have a little taste of music that may connect them with the divine? Can we do that? If you talk about being open and affirming, that's what I'm talking about. Being inclusive, that's what I'm talking about. And you guys do some really good things already. You are open to new music. You love it, it seems like, and I've heard from you, when some new things are being done. We've purchased an owl camera to help us connect with people when we do meetings when they can't be here. We could use for studies as well. That was a $1,000 purchase. That was big. We're looking ways to improve our worship so people can better participate by finding ways to maybe do captions. We have some software that Ben and I are looking at and some other solutions. So if people struggle with hearing, they can still participate. We're waiting on the grant to come back so we can buy new hearing devices. The study that we got done on our property will lead to probably some good discussions about the future of how we set up our facility to better accommodate people. But this passage also states that we've received certain gifts. And what are those gifts that you have? How can you use them? And I know as we age, we can't always do the same things that we once did. And early on, I mentioned how our gifts come in different forms. But are you strong in prayer? That's a gift you can give. Do you love sitting and talking with people? Visiting is a gift that you can give. Do you like to write notes? We have a card ministry you can join. Maybe sometimes we have a lot of time to do things, but we may have the financial means to support those that are doing ministry. Because sometimes we may be in the height of our peak earnings, but I'm busy at work. That may be a time where you're able to financially give more, because later on in life, when you go to retirement, you may not be able to. So your gifts and how you use your gifts change. That's why you always got to kind of take a little bit of an inventory. But I never want to hear you say, oh, I'm just too old, I can't really do anything. That is a lie. That's a lie. You have love to give. Some of you are prayer warriors. You got prayers to give. That's a gift. Use those gifts. Everything we do, I would encourage us to have an element for connection. Don't be quick to do the work. Be quick to connect on a personal level. Don't be quick to invite people to worship. Ooh. But spend time with them, get to know them, and maybe there is a group to connect them with. And later on, we can tackle worship. Build connections with each other first. This is why I think church can work for everybody. I used to have a pretty good group of atheists and agnostic kids in my youth group when I did that, because I focused on connection. Because if the worst that somebody walks away with from being present with us here, and this is a heck of a place, a lot of love to give here. Man, if you got a young family, you got kids, you'll get loved here. You'll get cared for here. I know the Splash have told me some stories. You guys have felt that from some of the people here when you first came. If the worst that somebody walks away with is people that love them, care for them, pray for them, are friends with them, show up for them, that's pretty darn good. Then God's going to be okay with that. That's pretty darn good. That's a good church. That's good work. And as the scripture says, how we act, talk, and all that we do should reflect God. People may not believe when they come. The church for too long required a belief and a set of beliefs to belong, but we're going to flip the table and we're going to have people belong before they believe. Because through the interactions with us, they will experience the love of God. It'll be up to them and seek in their own hearts to develop that connection with God. Our role is to love our neighbor the absolute best that we can, to reflect the best of God into others. So it's my hope and prayers that this place joyfully connects with all people. Amen.